I still have many issues. The issues haven't disappeared. I'm just no longer a member of the DNC, and this is also not what I envisioned. I had envisioned cleaning up house internally and trying to fix it as a Democrat, but events have left me no choice. Being called the B word, the C word, the W word, a spy every single day on an hourly basis will break your soul.
Lindy, thanks very much for coming on the program. Let's start with your role with the Trump campaign. But before we get to that, I mean, it wasn't long ago that you spoke about all of your issues with Trump and the Republicans. It's quite a turnaround, isn't it?
It is, and I still have many issues. The issues haven't disappeared. I'm just no longer a member of the DNC, and this is also not what I envisioned. I had envisioned cleaning up house internally and trying to fix it as a Democrat, but events have left me no choice. Being called the B word, the C word, the W word, a spy every single day on an hourly basis will break your soul. And
Right.
you can only take so much as a human being. So,
So,
there were
yeah, so you've been roundly abused by the Democrats. Presumably, you've lost
beyond.
long friends over this, have you?
I've lost more than I can count. But they
Mm,
weren't really friends to begin with, right? If I could lose them over this. My real
right.
friends are with me no matter what. But I lost political friends. In politics, you have transactional friends and then you have real friends. And I lost all my transactional friends.
You've said that you still have issues with Trump and the Republicans. So what issues do you have,
Well,
and why did you decide nevertheless to go ahead and make this decision?
Well, my issues are always going to be the same: climate change and gun violence. I wrote my university thesis on climate change, and Sandy Hook happened on my birthday near a town that I grew up in, December 14th, 2012, and which is why I ran for Congress. So gun violence is still very much an issue. Just because I switch parties doesn't mean the issue suddenly disappears. But I hope that I can talk some sense. Maybe I can exert some influence while I'm within the Republican Party. And I do want to say a member of the Trump family actually reached out to me to welcome me. And the RNC chair, actually their co-chairs, she reached out to me as well, Casey Crosby, and she's been incredibly gracious. She checks in every now and then to make sure that I have everything I need. I was appointed to the Trump Vance Inaugural Committee. I raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the inauguration in just 3 days. And then I found out that we had hit the fire code
Mm.
due to demand. So we are no longer accepting additional guests. But
So just tell us what you think your inauguration is going to be like on Monday.
it's going to be extremely brutally cold. So cold
That's
that
no good.
I'm like attempted to skip the outdoor ceremony. I have blood circulation issues.
Mm.
So for when people think it's cold, for me, it's like deeply painful down to my soul. But yeah, the enthusiasm has been unreal. Trump has raised upwards of $200 million for the inauguration. And just for perspective, Biden raised 62. It's not
Yeah.
even close. And so I had a donor. He's a finance executive. He offered to give $100,000 and the party turned him away
So the
because
money's
fire
talking,
code.
the money is voting with Trump, obviously, and has done already. What do you think he's going to do in his 4 years to reward those people who are backing him?
We saw already, for example, that he appointed David Sachs, a well-known financier, billionaire, as the cryptos are, AIs are. So he's going to be very, very tech friendly and ensuring that, in his words, that America becomes the crypto capital of the world. That's what he wants. And you see Zuckerberg already making changes, and basically recreating Meta in Trump's likeness, in that he is getting rid of any constraints on speech on the platform.
Mm.
So this is
But given that
exactly what
you've
Trump wants.
given that you explained right at the outset of this interview that some of the terrible language you've been called for switching sides, are you worried about the kind of torrent of misinformation and abuse online by those people backing Donald Trump?
I am. I am. And I've reported a lot of defamation of me, and it's fallen upon deaf ears. Like X doesn't think it's a problem.
Mm.
And I I'm not a sycophant, so I'm not going to say, now that I'm on his committee, I'm not gonna raise concerns. The concerns are still there.
So have you got
I just
concerns
simply
about Elon Musk's role, for example, the fact that he
Oh
seems
my
to be
gosh,
directing
speaking of
policy?
Elon, he tweeted out my Daily Mail story to his 213 million followers. I was like, "Holy crap." He shared it with all of his followers. Not only that, he has a PAC, the PAC that spent a quarter of $1 billion electing Trump. His PAC is now promoting my story.
Right, so you're a fan.
Well, now I feel more friendly towards him, but I didn't ask him to do that. That happened organically. That was amazing. I just woke up one day and I found out that Elon was pushing my story, which is
Hmm.
just like so wild. I never, that was not on my bingo card.
But he's also pushing a whole load of fake news, for example, here in the UK on grooming gangs.
Oh yeah. And it's interesting because didn't that happen 10 years ago? All
Yeah,
of
I
a
mean,
sudden it's
people
like
have been
front page news
reporting on it
again.
exactly. So it's been pretty troubling to see how he's stoked that and applauded the far right, for example.
Well, the thing is, I've actually, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but I've turned rightward in recent years. So I mean, I get it. I may not do the same thing, but I understand where he's coming from. I've always been, center right. That's always where I've been. But the Democratic Party has been lurching increasingly to the left and has thoroughly left me behind.
Right, they've left you, you haven't left them really.
Yeah, unfortunately, back in the day, not too long ago, maybe just 5, 6 years ago, we would be able to say men shouldn't be in women's sports, and everyone would be like, "Oh, yeah, of course, like, duh." Now it's a crime to say that. I
Mhm.
I said that men I this is what I said on Fox. I said, "Men are men and women are women, and men shouldn't be in women's sports." The fury over that statement was just, like, unbelievable.
Well, we've been talking about Elon Musk getting involved in UK politics and making his views
And
known.
Germany,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. European politics. What do you think Trump will do for the UK? Obviously, a lot of people in the government here are worried about what he's said on tariffs. Do you think he will be as good as his word and slap a huge number of tariffs on that are going to damage the UK economy, but also the worldwide economy?
I think this is a manifestation of the madman theory. Everyone not knowing which way he's actually gonna go, but in the meantime, they, do his bidding. You know what I mean? So I hope to God this is a negotiating gambit. And politically, it would make sense because he was elected largely because of grocery prices and tariffs. I mean, that would exacerbate inflation and jack up
Mm.
prices across the board, and he knows that. But
You
you
know, it
have
sounds
like
like
some
you disagree with him on tariffs, you disagree with him on climate change, and you disagree with him on gun violence. I'm wondering whether there's a bit of opportunism in your switching to support him.
I agree with him on everything else.
Okay, well, that's quite a lot.
Immigration for me is a very, very big issue. I'm a legal immigrant. I'm a naturalized American. My family and I waited years to come to this country. This is not opportunism. This is just the way that I am.
Yeah.
And as they say that a Republican is just a Democrat mugged by reality. I've been assaulted multiple times on the streets of Philadelphia simply for getting my dinner. Like I was just standing there and I mean, I have a paper trail. I filed a police report. Like this happened to me. And as I've gotten older, I've become more conservative. I grew up in the era of Barack Obama, and it wasn't acceptable to be a Republican. I think there were like 2 Republicans on my college campus.
Right.
It was just conservatives were just ostracized. I didn't realize until recently that not being a member of the Democratic Party was an option.
Mm.
And frankly, by the summer, I was secretly hoping, I hate to say this, but by the summer, I was secretly hoping that he would win. At the same time, like hedging, you know, Kamala was like, I was also hedging against a Kamala victory by fundraising for her.
Mm. Well, just finally,
Anyway,
you made of the breaking news this afternoon about the Supreme Court upholding the ban on TikTok. Trump has sort of changed his tune on TikTok. He was very opposed to it, and now he's a big fan, probably because he's got a lot of followers in part. Do you think he might intervene and overturn that and make sure it stays, TikTok stays?
he doesn't have the ability to overturn it, but he has the ability to enforce or not enforce it. He can tell his DOJ to just take a very lax and lenient attitude towards it. And I'm here in Philadelphia. And one of the reasons why he changed his mind is a Pennsylvanian billionaire named Jeff Yass, who's a huge investor in TikTok. Yeah, I mean, I actually think it's, the fact that the company is Chinese owned is a legitimate concern.
Right. So
You
you'd like
know,
to see that law enforced, would you?
Not necessarily. I think we should still like I know people like Kevin O'Leary and like Elon, they're still pursuing other avenues. I think it's a legitimate concern. We should explore trying to shift it to American ownership. I think that's it makes sense to do that, but I don't think it should be banned on January 19th. I think that's very drastic. We have millions of Americans, a huge number of Americans who make their livelihoods on TikTok. I don't want to yank their rug from underneath their feet. My concern is them. I personally, I mean, I only have like tens of followers. I don't personally have a horse in this race, but I just want to make sure that our national security remains robust at the same time that we're not undermining people's ability to make a living.
Lindy Li, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time.